All right, greetings everybody, and welcome to week number 8. That is right, week number 8 of your 9407 class, which is your intellectual freedom and its discontents class. As always, I'm your professor, Dr. Jace K. Alston, and what we're going to do this week, this one's going to be quick. I know I say that a lot, but this one is actually going to be quick. I think that, excuse me. Sorry about that. I do think that there is plenty of material in the modules this week. We are in our second week on talking about book bans, so I'm not going to talk about book bans in the check-in video this week because I did last week. So we'll talk about something else. Actually, we are talking about book bans, but not quite in the same way. Basically, I've got two news stories that I want to share with you all and just kind of opine about them. And so that's probably only going to take me about maybe, this should be a 15-minute video at the most, okay? And that's unsped up. By the way, I do want to say, I am following Royals baseball. They are doing very, very well. And the Royals will be back here in Kansas City on Wednesday. So that is great. We don't have, I typically root for the Carolina-based teams. I'm a Carolina Panthers fan, Charlotte Hornets fan, Carolina Hurricanes fan. But there's no Major League Baseball in the Carolina, so I am since I moved to Missouri, I became a Royals fan. Anyway, let's get into some of the, we'll start out with the state of the course update, and then I will talk about the two news articles that are very brief articles that I wanted to just kind of soapbox on a little bit. So let's start out again with the state of the course update. The big thing to know, and in fact, this might be the only pressing thing that you need to know at the moment, is that we do have your banned book / challenge book report due on, it's coming up in about 2 weeks. Let me make sure that's about 2 weeks. Yeah, a week from Sunday. Sunday is the 13th, and then an assignment is going to be due on the 20th. These are going to be your banned book reports. These are, my students in the past have actually really enjoyed these, so I'm hoping that you all will as well. And again, I think I mentioned this before, but this is going to be peer-to-peer learning. So what I mean by that is you're going to submit your assignment, your book report, as a discussion board prompt. And then once they're all turned in, I'm going to allow you all to read everybody else's work so that you can kind of get a sense of, okay, what books have been challenged, when, and for what reason, okay? So you'll get that information by reading the book reports from your classmates, and that'll help you you know, acquaint yourself with what's going on with book challenges and book bans. And then also knowing that information, that's always a good discussion piece. I shouldn't say always, but it's often a good discussion piece when you're at conferences and things like that. So that's another reason why you may want to go ahead and read the work that your classmates submit for the book report, and that way you can get kind of up to speed with what's been going on with some of these books and things like that. And again, that's a good way to kind of start conversation at a lot of times at conferences, and that's a good way to network. So there you go. All right, let's take a look at the next thing for the state of the course update. And the last thing you need to know for state of the course update actually is that we do have our final sync session, which is going to be the debate in a month. It's going to be, well, a little less than a month now. It's going to be on November the 5th, and our debaters are preparing right now. I do apologize again to my debaters because I made a mistake and made the debate earlier this semester than it usually is. However, that could be a good thing. While it does give the debaters less time to prepare, it also does give them an opportunity to kind of get the debate out of the way sort of earlier, and then they can finish out the class with a little less stress, whereas the debaters are typically when the debate is in late November, which is when I usually have it, and again, I messed up this time, but when it's in late November, what happens is the students are preparing all of their finals and everything else at the same time that they're trying to prepare for the debate. And hopefully this time around, all of the debate stuff will be out of the way by the time you try to do your finals for the other classes. This is for the people who are participating in the debate. But aside from that, all you have are discussion board prompts, and you all have been doing just fine on those. So that's pretty much it for the state of the course update. Let's go ahead and take a look at these two news articles. Okay, so again, I'm going to talk about two very short news articles, very short recent news articles. I'll probably talk about 5 minutes about each. So yes, I was going to put us at 15 minutes because we're at 5 minutes now. And so let's go ahead and get into that. I do want to opine about these. The first one is going to be a little more heavier of a topic than the second one. Second one is not that heavy of a topic. I just want to reassure you all of the value that some communities do indeed put into their public libraries. So let's start with this one here, because this is, quite frankly, in my opinion, a very nauseating story, okay? Parents' rights group threatens people who offer banned books in free libraries. Now, here's the issue that I have with this, and I'm going to be very plain with this. It's one thing to challenge books in the library because, quite frankly, the library is something that is owned by all of us, right? The public library is it's a community resource that is funded generally with taxpayer money, right? So, because of that, because the taxpayers are because the libraries are operating on the taxpayer dollar, I do think that that gives the taxpayer the right to say, hey, I feel I should have a voice in what goes into the library that my taxes pay for. So I do think that challenges are a good thing in the sense that they do allow our communities to decide, okay, this is something that should be in our public library and this is not something that should be in our public library. Well, I shouldn't say they get to decide, but they get to have a voice. That's what I meant to say. It should be the librarians that are making the decision, but the community should have a voice. And certainly if they're paying taxes, they are paying the librarians. So yes, there's that whole thing going on there as well. So I do think that best practice is really for libraries to public libraries that are funded by taxpayers. I do think it's best practice for them to listen to their community members even when their community members are wrong, and to receive that input and to try to there are going to be a lot of cases, and I mean a lot of cases, where there just is no resolution that's going to fix things and be something that everybody's okay with. All right, there's going to be plenty of times like that, but believe it or not, there really are also those times where people just want to be heard. That is also the case sometimes, where people are challenging books and they want to have their voices heard, but they're not going to go out and riot in the streets if their call to have the book challenged or banned is denied. Okay, so that's something that I want you all to think about, is that there's a difference between a library that is taxpayer funded and a library that is not really taxpayer funded. And so these little free libraries that you see around the country that do these sorts of things, these are not taxpayer funded. They do not have library boards that can kind of check what the library employees are doing and be kind of like that middleman between the constituents and the library employees. We don't have a board. We don't have library employees. There's no tax line for free little libraries. They're just things that exist privately. And so this is something that I think is a huge overreach from this group, which is, what is this group again? Hold on. So yeah, this group, Utah Parents United. This group is actually attempting to use a state anti-pornography law to try to meddle into whether or not these books can be in this little free library. This is not a taxpayer situation. Somebody privately owns this little free library, and they are, if they own it, it is their property, and they should be able to stock it with whatever they want and allow other people to stock it with whatever they want as they see fit. But this group of Utah Parents Unite is kind of meddling, and they are trying to use a state anti-pornography law to try to go after books that oftentimes are not pornography. And let's take a look at the books that they are talking about. Now, let's, excuse me, hold on for a second. All right, so what I wanted to do was just kind of find a federal definition for pornography, but that looks like it's going to be a bigger quest for information than I am able to actually put in for tonight. So I'm going to skip looking for that federal definition of pornography, but I am going to say this. These are some of the books that they are trying to catch with the anti-pornography law. The Color Purple, Why the Caged Bird Sings. Handmaid's Tale, Catch-22. This is not pornography, okay? And I would be very interested in actually seeing how a lawyer is going to make the case that a book like The Color Purple, how that constitutes pornography. Because the thing is, yes, The Color Purple does indeed have, it does have content, sexual content in it. It does have, quite frankly, sexual assault content in it. So definitely not themes that are pleasant, right? Those are certainly things that we don't really like talking about all that much in our society, but at the same time, they are definitely things that occur on a regular basis. But what I like to do is kind of step back and say, hey, wait a minute. These are very specific works that you were going after. And the thing that I kind of had take issue with here is that, yeah, if you were talking about the text in something like The Color Purple amounting to pornography, then yes, and you've probably seen this point made before on social media earlier this summer, there are things that can then be swept into this if the definition of pornography can include just mere text, then that's something that could get even holy books like the Bible caught up. And I mean, I am going to tell you, yes, if you have not, most Christians haven't read the Bible. That's just the thing. That's just a fact. Most Christians believe in a book that they have not read. But when we talk about that, we should talk about the fact that some very, very sexually graphic text is going to be found in the Bible. There is the Song of Solomon, or the Song of Songs, depending on how you, depending on your faith or how you've trained and studied the Old Testament or the Tanakh. The Song of Songs or the Song of Solomon, that is something that has some very explicit sexual content in it. We also see, sorry about that, we also do see a incestuous sexual assault take place in the Bible that happens between Amnon, who is one of King David's sons, and his half-sister Tamar. A sexual assault happens, and again, let me check which which book the Bible is. I'm sorry, the book that occurs in is 2 Samuel. So we see a sexual assault in the Bible. We see explicit sexual scenes in the Song of Solomon, which is in the Bible. I say that not to discredit the Bible, but to say that, hey, you can't go after something like The Color Purple or Why the Caged Bird Sings and claim that the text is pornography without compromising also holy books, wherein the text is also sexually explicit. So that's the thing. You're setting a very dangerous precedent here, and I never want there to be any sort of censorship or anything attached to the Bible, or for that matter, the Quran or the Tanakh or any of these, or the Book of Mormon or any of these holy books, right? I don't want to see that happen to any of them. That's part of cultural heritage, which is where I do a lot of my research and publishing. And the religious aspects of cultural heritage, they do require for us to respect the cultures that have produced these religions. And in order to respect the cultures that have produced these religions, you do have to respect the religions as well. We do have to protect the Christian Bible and the Muslim Quran and the Mormon Book of Mormon and the Jewish Tanakh. We have to protect these things. And what groups like UHA Parents United don't realize is that when they are opening the door to have things banned, even in private facilities like a little free library, when they are trying to sue to have things banned due to anti-pornography because of what is occurring in the text, then they are opening the door for malicious actors, or not necessarily malicious actors, that's a little heavy, but and to anybody who's an agnostic or atheist in the class, I apologize, because that was very offensive what I just said. I apologize. Not malicious actors, but it does open the door for people. I consider people who are agnostics and atheists and those sorts of things, I consider them under an umbrella term that I call free thinkers. It does allow for free thinkers to have the door open and say, oh, hey, well, this is sexually explicit too. This Bible, this Tanakh, this Quran, they're sexually explicit and they've got to go as well. What are you going to do then? Right. Don't ever do something that gives your enemy the ability to turn your own rhetoric against you. All right. I spoke more on that than I wanted to. Let's see if I can talk about this other thing in 30 seconds. Hold on. Okay, so this video is going to be 16 minutes instead of 15 minutes, but I do think I can finish this in the next 2 minutes. So it'll be a 16-minute video. I apologize for saying it'd be a 15-minute video, but still 16 minutes for me is kind of short. Now, I did want to also just bring this to your attention, and we will be talking about library spaces later on in the class. That is, excuse me, one of our modules is library spaces. So Pima County Library District pauses plans to close libraries after community concerns. So they were not closing these libraries, by the way. And when I first saw this headline, I'm thinking, hey, are they closing the libraries for good because the community didn't want the libraries anymore? They thought the librarians were doing something they weren't supposed to, and so they wanted to shut them down. I was very alarmed when I first saw that headline, but no, as it turns out, no, what's going on is this Pima County, Tucson, Arizona, they were going to close these public libraries down so that they could renovate them and then also consolidate because there were 3 underutilized libraries. However, the community made their voices heard. And when the communities made their voices heard, what happened? The leaders decided that they were going to pause the plans to close the libraries because, among other things, they provide crucial meeting space, which is right there. And again, we'll be talking about meeting space later on in the semester. So bring this up to say, and you'll have an advocacy assignment also due later in the semester. Advocacy is important. Advocacy can be the thing that stops your library from getting shut down, as apparently could be the case of what happened in Tucson, Arizona. So I just want you all to be mindful and internalize that as well. And from there, I would say that, you know, always just be an advocate for your library, because if you don't do it, who else will? And so I'm glad to share that story out of Tucson, Arizona with you, because I want you all to always feel empowered to believe that if you talk, people will listen. Sometimes people think that they're not going to listen to librarians out here, but they will, and they do. So there you go. I am Dr. Jace, and I am let me try again. I am Dr. Jace, and I am rooting for the Kansas City Royals in this playoff race. All right, there we go. I made a rhyme, and I will see you all next week with another check-in video. Thank you.